Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. We have one of our sponsors on today in i-80 Gold. They had terrific results out today from the McCoy Cove project with lots of high grade, nice thick intersections, great continuity, and a fantastic project that is just one of three for them. Ewan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be back on. We had a little bit of a hiatus of news, so I haven't been on as much as before, but should start to see a lot of news flowing out of the company here going forward.
That's awesome. Well, as you know, you're always welcome, Ewan. And, in a general sense, finding a company like yours with the valuation it has and three, world-class projects being developed at the same time with the infrastructure to mine that, plus a whole bunch of other assets that could be company makers in other companies. You got quite a menu of assets there, Ewan.
Well, yeah, we sure do. We've been fortunate to assemble quite a portfolio, but unfortunately, of late, we haven't been rewarded for it. In fact, we've been penalized for almost being successful and being a company claiming that we are now in the process of transitioning from being an explorer to a developer and producer. That Lassonde curve you talk about, I try not to believe it happens, but definitely when companies are viewed as being in that development stage, they get a little less attention. So it's sure nice to get the attention we received today. Probably the Cisco news helped. A developer, they don't even have their permits yet. So 50% of a developer going for 2 billion is quite a price tag. So I think it helps put the shine back on companies who have quality assets like i-80.
You and I, in the development discount window, not all projects and companies are created equal. One of the key things that I look for is how long they're going to be in the development discount window. And that's where you guys really separate yourself from other development projects in that you have the assets, you are moving them forward, and that that narrows the development discount window quite dramatically in your case.
Yes, we're fortunate to have existing infrastructure, paved roads, grid powers already to every project. And for the most part, we're fully permitted or in the advanced stages of being permitting. So definitely does close down that development window. Often you'll see a project like Hard Rock when we decide to move it to development. It took 2 years of definition drilling, a year of feasibility, 3 years, 4 years of permitting, and it takes a long time to advance a project from an exploration concept to production. Hard Rock or Greenstone is an example. Here it is in 24 going into production. We started work on that in 2008. So that's
And
uh
how
that's a good
long
period, 16 years from first drill hole to development. So
and how long, like I start the discount window once a resource is done. I don't, some may disagree with that, but I think that's where it starts. How long from resource to production?
well, the first resource was 1 million ounces, but it was open. We were still drilling. So during that period with Premier, we did get quite a bit of attention till we got up to about 5 or 6 million ounces, and then we converted the. I think as you're drilling out a deposit like that, you're always hopeful somebody's going to come in and scoop you up. A lot of companies are, but when they don't, you have to at some point decide to move a project forward. So that final resource to production was probably 8 years.
There you
So
go.
that's a big period, and the
And that
advantage.
might actually be kind of narrow compared to a lot of projects.
Yeah, yeah, it probably was. We were fortunate to have a lot of support from some of the First Nation communities in this area, so that helped get the project pushed through the permitting process in Canada. Uh, in Nevada, you don't really have as many things standing in front of you to develop a project. And the fact that every one of our projects, a brownfield site, again, mostly with the infrastructure required. Two projects were already underground, drilling underground. So we're quite advanced in that curve compared to where we were when we released the final resource at Greenstone before moving into feasibility.
And, being well advanced is where I also get excited because there's a sweet spot when a company goes from development into production. And oftentimes that can lead to very big gains. So you're well along the curve and getting really close to that sweet spot.
Yeah, we just got into the South Pacific zone at Granite Creek. That's really what we expect to be the future of that operation. We still have to complete some underground drilling in it. We've completed the first level of test mining. We'll be talking about that tomorrow morning and in our quarterly update. So there will be some discussion on what the upper part of the South Pacific zone looks like. It had really positive results there. And now we're putting in the second, third, getting down into the core of the deposit. We just right at the very top, there's about a 50-meter strike length area where it really blossoms out. And so the first drift was into that very upper part. And now as we go down, the strike length on each level should get bigger and bigger until the bottom where we're about 450, 500 meters of strike length and open. And we're just completing right now about a 200-meter step out along strike to the north that we're pretty excited to see how that looks, because that could show that this whole stratigraphy goes a lot further than where it's known today.
And I want to ask you a difficult question, and I hope I don't step on your toes or cause you any problems, but I've been making some speculations that I think the reason that you are where you are as a valuation is there's a few factors in it for me. One is that you have a very ambitious plan. You're developing three projects at the same time, refurbishing processing facilities. It's not the first time that I've seen a company with an ambitious plan. I love it because I think it's going to work out very well. Another factor, I think, is that you guys have last year you talked about a partnership on the project Ruby Hill. And thirdly, and this is one that I think will be really difficult for you, is I think that you guys have been suffering from a bit of a short campaign by a syndicate. And I see a significant amount of shorts declared. And usually that means that there's a whole lot more behind that. Any of those you can comment on, Ewan?
On the short campaign, I guess we have no evidence of that, and it would be hard to prove, but it's pretty interesting to see over the last couple of months how especially in the United States, how the short interest really ramped up. And whether that's a campaign or somebody, these shorts, when they put a short on you, they want to help make it work. And the fact that they allow naked shorting, so to speak, even compounds the difficulty. And often, if it's an aggressive enough short, they'll actually try to break the support and continue to break support in order to make their target come true. So
Those are
it's a
the things
shame.
I'm seeing. I mean, they're not hard evidence where I can go to court with it, but I'm certainly seeing tracks of evidence.
Yeah, and you see people like Eric Sprott speaking out about it, well respected. So I think it's suspected that it happens pretty regularly these days to the resource sector, especially when there's really a dearth of support, really, for mining companies, especially equities these days. So I'd say that's a possibility. In terms of you mentioned the
One
joint
that you
venture.
can't really do anything about.
Yeah, and one that you can't do much about. In terms of the joint venture we announced in November, I think what was missed by a lot of people was the fact that it had a 6-month due diligence period. And during the first 4 months, we were drilling. And the party that we're intending, it's not a done deal, but that we're intending to work with here, we completed a drill campaign that they funded. So it took some time to get that drill campaign finished. We went over Christmas, so there's a shutdown period. We completed the drill program, and then it's the main reason for that is to demonstrate metallurgy. The incoming party is a base metal company, so interested in the base metal metallurgy. And as you know, we only released our metallurgy 3 or 4 weeks ago. So we just finished the metallurgical work that
And
we
I
did
think it's
back to
really
that.
crucial because you have a combination there of base metals and gold. So
Mhm.
figuring out what goes where and how much comes out of this and that, it's not a simple deal.
No, it's very difficult because we want to ensure that the project moves forward for the gold potential. The Ruby Deeps is part of our longer term plan for the autoclave at Lone Tree. It is a very critical deposit for us to achieve our gold growth plan. So bring in a partner. We don't want a partnership that is going to limit our ability to push gold. So we have to ensure that it's structured in a way that allows us to continue to advance the gold business, while, as we stated, we've said before, the incoming party is more interested in the base metal side. And of course, we believe that's very important part of our growth as well, given that the plan is to convert the plant at Ruby Hill. But, partnerships are never easy to negotiate and put in place. There's a lot of things that come up along the way. And after our experience at Greenstone with Centerra, we're, a little more gun shy. We spend a little more time making sure that the terms are locked up and solid enough that we won't result in that potential for conflict later on that could really disrupt the project. So it's pretty important to get it right. And we've been working away, and we'll be talking a bit more about that in our quarterly presentation tomorrow as well.
You brought up an important point that I don't think a lot of people, in an ideal world, you probably wouldn't try to develop three projects at the same time, especially in the tough market we've gone through over the last couple of years. But the reason you have to is because to run the sulfide material through an autoclave, those things are hot and high pressure, and they need to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, except for when you got to shut down normally. So you really need the feed from all three projects. So you really had no alternative but to push everything forward, collect together.
Yeah, it's not a massive autoclave like the one's facility, because there's multiple autoclaves that go into a facility. But ours is about a 2,800 ton a day facility.
So you
And
need at least that much every
yeah, so you
day.
need you need to have that sitting on surface ready to go every day. And Granite Creek being, a smaller ramp, the South Pacific zone sort of 3 to maybe 10, 15 meters in places. It's not a huge width zone. The deepest holes are some of our best width holes. So hopefully it continues to blossom at depth, but the project won't feed, that project alone won't feed an autoclave. And Cove, depending on how Cove works out, today's results, again, very positive. It The goal will be to get as much as possible from Cove and Granite Creek, because they're the highest grade. And Ruby Hill is actually the least important in that plan, but we still don't foresee our being able to fill it with Cove and Granite Creek. So having the mineralization from Ruby Hill or from the Ruby Deeps deposit available to top up the facility is pretty critical in our plan, and we need to make sure that's preserved, whether we have a partnership or not. And I think, as you know, um, most companies prefer not to have a partner. If we were in a market that was everybody was gung ho about us building three mines at once and starting up an autoclave, and it was easy to finance. There was an equity market that made it easy to finance. We wouldn't even be looking for a partnership. But in this market environment we're in, we just felt it prudent to consider bringing in a partner that would assist in financing the growth of these three projects and take some pressure off of I-80 going forward.
I'm running down to a minute here of your time left, Ewan, and I really wanted to talk to you about the powerful move in gold and the big deal announced today for Goldfields to take over Osisco. You got a quick comment before you got to blast off?
But I think that the Cisco deal in particular really speaks to the majors need to have projects for the future. The discoveries being made in the gold sector, in the mining sector in recent years, there isn't one every week. So, and actually there isn't one every week that's actually buildable or becomes a real deposit. So their quality deposits are harder and harder to find, and they're harder and harder to permit. So it's just a good example on how these world-class type projects can grab the attention of somebody else who wants growth for the future. And obviously Goldfields came in early for 50%. They're advancing the project, but I guess with the move in gold price, they wanted the rest. So I think that really speaks to um,
State of
the
affairs.
appetite of major companies potentially getting bigger and bigger to scoop up projects that they can develop for the future, and it helps the whole sector when you see things like that. So that
But it doesn't
absolutely,
really affect the production level because you're just shifting assets from one company to a bigger company. There's still a really tight supply chain and strong demand as we move into a new gold standard that I see immediately ahead of us.
yeah. And then what you say about gold, I think there's no question, as you've been, one of the most vocal about it, this death spiral of debt. And with taking away the gold standard, like was done many years ago, just allows governments of the world to print money, and printing money fuels inflation. Look at the price of housing, food, everything today. The inflation has gone pretty rampant. Um, if you look at the value of a dollar in 2000 and what it could buy you compared to what it buys you today, you get a fraction of what you
Even
could have
just in the
purchased.
last few years, it has gone down. And then if you go back to 1971, a dollar buys you about 5 or 10 cents worth of stuff in 1971 dollars.
Yeah, it's the fiat currency that we've adopted worldwide really is in my opinion bound to fail at some point. They just can't tack on debt forever, or else everybody's going to have to do debt forgiveness and do a big reset. And if you're resetting, you better have a hard asset. And gold, compared to a Bitcoin on a computer, you got 1,000 choices. If we get a big reset, you're going to want to have gold and silver in your arsenal, and it's never been more important than today, I think, especially.
Revival of the best foreign exchange currency, Ewan.
Yeah, and it's a currency that there's no government attachment to it.
Nobody
There's
putting debt on it.
Yeah, and you can't just print it.
No.
It's gotta be found and brought out of the ground at pretty big expense. And I always say it was the first money, and it's probably going to be the last money. And central banks are starting to recognize that more and more. So we've seen them piling in early. And I think we're early in the game. We haven't seen the generalist funds jumping in and making gold a key part of their investment, especially the gold equities. So this is something that I think has a lot of legs. I wouldn't be surprised to see a spike in this second half of this year going into Christmas of $3,000. It wouldn't shock me at all. And we continue to see the political strife going on around the world. Another attack, the Ukraine-Russia thing keeps fueling, the BRICS currency coming along. There's a lot in favor of the gold sector, and a lot more than the generalist investor think. They're so used to just buying Nvidia and Apple and Microsoft that what do I need gold for? Well, they'll be shown one day.
And they
That's my
certainly don't have a big menu of high quality development gold companies to choose from. And I think i-80 is one of the best.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for your support.
Okay, Ewan, I'll let you go. I know you got another meeting right away.
Okay, yeah, I do. Thank you very much for your time again and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. So there you
Okay.
go, folks. I-80 Gold is a gold development company focused in Nevada. They've been punished in the market over the last 6 to 8 months. We touched on some of the reasons that I think that's happening. And one of the reasons is that they're having so much success. It's very rare for a developer to be able to simultaneously develop three world-class projects. I've only seen that one other time in my career, and that was Agnico Eagle, that is now the second largest gold mining company. They talk about the difficulty of doing it, and they wouldn't probably do it again, but it's the reality of what helped them grow so rapidly. So I think i-80 Gold is a terrific pick as a turnaround play in the gold mining stock sector. And I think they're doing all the right moves to, move everything forward the best way that they can. Ewan mentioned that he's going to have some more stuff to talk about tomorrow. So I would advise you to check out their webinar that they're doing so you can do your homework. But at the end of the day, I just think this company has all of the assets needed in order to turn on three world-class mines in a short time frame. And there just is not very many of those. And I think as more generalist investors come into the space and look for companies of that kind, there's not very many of them to choose from. As always, I think it's important for you to also note that i-80 Gold is a sponsor of my reports. That means that they pay me to create content. They do not pay me to have my opinions, which are based on 30 years of my experience in the mining business. And no matter if a company is a pick or a sponsor, it's all about the projects to me. So be aware of that bias as well. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.